get on with the council meeting. It's 4:30. I'll remind you that the meeting is being webcast. You should refrain from making any defamatory statements. Join me for the acknowledgement of country. Yass Valley Council recognises the Ngunnawal people, the traditional custodians of the land, water, and sky. We pay our respects to their elders past and future emerging leaders. We extend our respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who live in the Yass Valley local government area. Would you join me now with the prayer? Let us be still and remember the presence of God as we commence our meeting. Let us together pray for guidance and help. All say together, Almighty God, we ask your blessing upon this council. Direct and prosper our deliberations to the true welfare of Australia and the people of Yass Valley. Amen. Thank you, everyone. To add insult to injury, at this time of the day, the sun hits me right in the eyes. And I can't, 15 minutes, no, the other one, it is, that's not the other one. I couldn't even see Councillor Abbey or Councillor Butler or Councillor Jones. So if you're indicating anything to me, I'm sorry. It wasn't that I was ignoring it, I just couldn't see. Okay. We have no apologies. Any declarations of pecuniary interest or special disclosure? Councillor Burgess.
9.1 Bengo Wind Farm. I already received some money.
Thank you, Councillor Burgess. Any other declarations? What number was that again, Councillor Burgess?
9.1.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. 6.2, I'd just like to note that the proponent of the Benaki homestead, which is applying for a grant, I'm on a working group, an active working group, a maternity Yass working group with this person, but I see there's no problem with me staying in the room, no pecuniary interest to declare. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Item 4, the confirmation of the minutes. Someone like to move the Councillor Butler and Councillor Abbey. Thank you. Any questions?
I just want to confirm, Chris Fury is with us here online today. Is he here as CEO or is Julie still acting in that position for our meeting?
Julie is acting CEO.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
He's right in front.
No other questions? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. 6.1, planning proposal. There is a recommendation. Someone like to move it? Councillor Turner, Councillor Reid. Any questions? Any comments? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. Next to the local heritage grants program. So Popham moved. Reid second. Any questions?
Yeah, I don't think
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to check if this is the adjusted version, which includes the granola.
It does,
It does.
yes.
Fantastic. I just couldn't see it on the screen. Thank you.
It all adds up within $1, I
I
think.
believe so.
Okay.
Through this week, I'm going to make a quick comment. Firstly, I'd like to thank the staff and councillors involved on that committee. It's always appreciated your time. Sometimes it's small amounts which create the greatest debate and are the hardest to decide upon. So thank you so much. And thank you to the community who applied for these grants. I think it's important that we as a council put an emphasis on our heritage. If we don't, who will? And supporting our community with these projects also lends a little bit of that spirit of, well, they've just painted their fence, I might just do the same, even though, you know, your property may not be heritage. I think it certainly, there's a synergy, as it were, of getting these projects up and running, and it is a small bucket. But what we did note in the process was that sometimes these grants aren't expended, and it can happen in multiple occasions over years by the same applicant. So it was noted by some councillors in our recent catch up that it would be good to amend this policy to reflect how many times we allow that to happen, and also if there are unexpended funds, this grant pile is not big enough, or this bucket is not big enough to go out to a second wave of putting this out in terms of the cost of our staff. If you're looking at the proposals again, but I would love to see this rolled over to the following budget. I think that would be a wise thing to do because it's a very small budget. I think it's around 20,000, 19,000. And I might point out that pensioners, when they do apply, they do get the up to the maximum of 2,000 without needing to match that grant. I think we as councillors, when we are speaking to people who have a heritage home, if they do fall into that category, please tell them when they are applying that they don't need to match the grant. They can apply for something up to the 2,000 for their project. So something that I picked up on just this year that I wasn't aware of after a decade.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. So you're speaking in support.
Absolutely.
Any further speaking? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? The motion carried. So, do you want to report on your proposal, or would you bring a motion to a future council meeting?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I thought it might be appropriate when this next comes up for review, if we can get that done prior to the budget, that would be, or the next application timeline before next July. Yeah, that would be great.
I'll raise it with the Director of Corporate and Community.
Okay, thank you. The next item, 6.3, lease of the Memorial Pool Area, construction of a heated pool.
Through you, Mr. Mayor,
Councillor Jones.
press the button and dive straight in.
I hope you can swim.
I have a slightly different version to propose. The proposal to lease the land for the management of the current swimming pool and construction and management of an indoor heated pool and associated facilities at the Yass Memorial Pool site be placed on public notification for the suggested period you see up there. And if no objections are received, a councillor workshop be held prior to the development and release of an expression of interest for the lease. With a long. To you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I'd just like to thank the former chair of our heated indoor committee, Mr. Ross Webster, for attending and giving us that wonderful update. This has been a project that's been highlighted in our community strategic plan for the past 15 years and probably more if you care to keep looking back on those community strategic plans. I'd also like to note that this is a priority project for our open space master plan, which includes the Victorian Park master plan. So this is something that our community has been calling for quite some time. We're at an administrative step to get this out for public notice, but the workshop that I'm suggesting in there allows us to bring this document back, refresh us all about what will be in place for that EOI. Off the top of my head, I could recall that the minimum requirement for the lease of the current pool would be that there's no loss of service that we already provide, or no loss of opening time. So what we deliver now is what we'd expect as the bare minimum for that current open air Olympic pool. But beyond that, for our heated pool, councillors may have questions about, will there be a tiered pricing? Will there be something for concession holders in the expression of interest? And that's something that we can ask for in the expression of interest. How will you price for our community and provide perhaps some statistics about the Yass Valley local government area as part of that expression of interest, so they understand their market? I'm sure as a commercial operator looking to do this, they'll be looking to sharpen their pencil and provide the best possible opportunities for our families. I can speak for my own family to know that trying to get 5 kids to learn to swim in the small season that we have in an unheated pool is an uphill battle. And I have 2 decent swimmers and 3 complete non-swimmers. And I know that's not a comfortable position to be in for a lot of families. I know that when I am at the pool, seeing the enjoyment and enthusiasm for the aqua aerobics is wonderful, and the participation there from a lot of our older senior citizens is terrific. I would love to see that year round. A learn to swim program year round, the ability for rehab is something our community certainly deserves.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Cameron.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm not quite clear. Has the original motion now been changed?
It has been, yes.
This is now the new motion.
That's been amended, yes.
All right, okay, so this is the motion.
Yeah.
I just wonder why you've left in number 2, if no objections are received. Because I believe that a councillor workshop, which you haven't explained what it's really going to look at, even if there are objections, a workshop would be handy anyway. So why leave if no objections are received?
Through you, Mr Mayor, we can reverse that to say, if no objections are received,
Can I just, sorry.
so it's in relation to the expression of interest, not so much. So we can hold the workshop regardless.
That's what I've.
Yeah.
Can I, through you, Mr Mayor, maybe if it's amended to the council workshop just be a separate part of the motion. If no objections are received, essentially we would move to develop and release an expression of interest. If there's objections received, then it comes back to council. Or then proceed to the expression of interest. So if no objections are received, council develop and release an expression of interest for the lease.
So 2 stays the same, and there's a new 3.
Yeah, let's just, we'll just get that up on the
And
screen.
a council workshop be held prior.
Okay, fine. So
So,
that's the new motion.
yes, and that's the amended motion. And so if objections are received, it will come back to council.
All right. Yeah.
At some point.
Okay. Councillor Abbey.
Through you, Mr Mayor, to the acting CEO. Part of the reason why I asked former Councillor Webster about whether he figured that there was still a degree of support for this project was the fact that it's had a reasonably long gestation period going back to 2010. One of the issues is when you're a first-term councillor, as I am, we're asked to deliberate upon and vote on things where I don't have that history. I wasn't sitting in the chair in the chamber then. So for me, it was really reassuring that Councillor Webster could take my concerns, because sometimes I feel quite nervous voting on a matter when I don't have that corporate knowledge. Furthermore, some people may not know this, we're in a fairly binary situation when there's a report before council and we're voting. We either vote against it or we vote for it. We actually can't abstain. So it's reassuring to know that with confidence I will certainly be supporting and voting for this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Raven. Councillor Rowe?
Yes, I'd just like to say that I agree to the amended version of the motion.
As a seconded. Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Councillor Cameron.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'd like to ask 3 questions of the acting Chief Executive Officer, if I could please, about this motion. The first question is, because it's Crown land, etc., what is the date the Minister signed the approval to lease this Crown land? So what is the actual day and date that this was given approval? Because we have waited a long time for this to be given approval. The change of government, etc., made it a bit more difficult. And where can this be viewed?
And was there a third question?
Oh, that's the first question.
Oh, that's just the first question.
Yeah, sorry, it's two-parter.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I believe that council had previously been told that we needed the approval of the minister to be able to go to the expression of interest. I think it's become clear that we can actually go to the expression of interest without the ministerial approval. The ministerial approval will become comes into play when council goes to deal with the lease. If the lease, sorry, I should just clarify, if the lease is greater than 21 years, or if there are objections to the actual expression of interest for the lease.
Right, okay, so that sounds like there might be a possibility that approval, even though we've come to some sort of arrangement, approval could still be knocked back.
Well, through you, Mr Mayor, the plan of management actually authorises council to consider a lease. The plan of management, for Victoria Park actually
Which has been
authorises.
approved.
Yes,
Yeah.
the plan of management has been approved.
Yep.
And the minister gave us the sign off, and the plan of management is on council's website, and it is specifically mentioned in the document.
Okay, thank you. Second question, has the relevant research been done to clarify any responsibility that Yass Valley Council has in relation to leasing out a war memorial, such as the Yass Memorial Pool? It is a war memorial, and are there any complications in regard to leasing that out?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Councillor, I'm not aware that council's done any research around leasing out the War Memorial Pool per se, but I will just remind council that not so long ago we agreed to lease two essential shops, fronts, at the Memorial Hall. So I don't consider that to be a particular issue in that the pool is actually a council asset. The other thing is that councils all over Australia lease out the actual running of pools in their communities. It's quite common.
Oh, I understand that, but it's not all of them are a war memorial pool.
But I'm sure there would be pools that are. But council's just dealt with the Memorial Hall and the leasing out there of floor space, and this issue was not of concern to council then.
All right, okay. So, okay, thank you. And the final question, this proposed lease seems to be a public-private partnership, which is often used by state governments, but from my research, not local government. And will this involve subsidies, as yet unspecified? That what often happens with state government projects, should the lease prove unprofitable to the lessee?
I'll deal with the first part and I'll get you to ask the second part again.
Yeah, sure.
So through you, Mayor. No, it's not a public-private partnership. The intention is that council would lease it out to an operator. I know in the concept designs that they mention a joint venture, but I think that actually relates to something with the high school.
Yeah.
But at this stage, there is no intention of any public-private partnership.
All right, okay. Thank you. Thank you for your answer.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Any other questions? Any other comments? Councillor?
Through you, Mr Mayor, more of a comment than a question. I just want to say I think this is a really exciting thing for our community, and to me this is such a great way forward to do this other than us putting our hands in our pockets. Obviously, we have a lot of other projects on the boil and not much in the kitty, and so to me this takes this is a way that the community can have an asset to enjoy, and even though it becomes with, you know, families finding some money to pay for it, to me, like, and to be able to be part of the workshops where we can say, you know, what can we do about concessions and making this accessible for people. I think it's still a way forward, which would be a fantastic asset that I think a lot of the community would use. And I know myself, I've had a lot of conversations with people this week about this very issue, and I've had a lot of positive responses and a lot of people who are really excited that this is actually, all of a sudden there's some movement to make this happen. So, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. Everyone. Councillor Tony, you.
I'll make a comment, Mr Mayor, if I may. Simple preset, you don't ask for nothing.
Pretty well sums it up. Tony, you.
Well done.
Okay. I'll put the vote in.
Yeah, I'd like to speak against the motion.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Cameron.
I want to hit a swimming pool like everyone else in this room for the Yass Valley community. So a number of years ago, I joined the council indoor pool committee in 2016, although I think chaired by former councillor Ross Webster. And I think we did a lot of work trying to really come to terms with to assess the feasibility of such a pool. And I think we got to a really interesting sort of stage. And I think for some reason, in about 2019, it was suggested that Yass Valley Council was recommended to seek funding, grant funding, in 2021. However, somehow it became instead a leasing proposal. So I think a lot of work has been done and by that committee, and it was very active to get a lot done in a short period of time. I'm unable to support the recommendation at this time for a number of reasons. I think the first one is that it lacks detail about what will be in the public notice to enable our community to fully understand the proposal and its implications. So what I'm saying is, what could easily happen is that we could have a situation, public notice goes out on the council website saying, yeah, we want to lease this area and we want to build and construct a indoor pool and they'll pay for it, etc., etc. But if you go back to the master plan and have a good look at it, there's a whole lot of other things that are mentioned in the master plan, in the details of the aquatic area, as mentioned, the aquatic area. And, you know, there seems like a splash pool, a hydro pool, a gymnasium, a movement away from where the current change facilities are to another area. So when you start thinking about it, what's really involved with this particular proposal? And, you know, is it all of those things or any of those things or just the indoor pool by itself? So I think it needs to, that public notice needs to be a little bit more fully explained, because I've had a number of people talk to me and basically say, what's the gig here? You know, and on the surface, it looks like a good deal. I also think that councillors, and it's good that we've got a councillor workshop coming up, but I think councillors should have had a workshop a long time ago. We're talking about 2019 when we started talking about a lease arrangement rather than us going for grants and getting money to pay for it then and there. And we probably missed an opportunity in hindsight, and it's easy to say it in hindsight, when a lot of grants were forthcoming after COVID in particular, and we could have put our hand up if we had have had, I could say, a grants officer or somebody really pushing to get the money for that particular proposal. But we started to drift into this leasing possibility. I don't think we've really been fully briefed on the implication of this lease for the council, including liability if the project is unsuccessful, community charges for use, what are the parameters for use, opening times for the indoor pool and the facility, staffing, etc. So there's a lot of ifs about this whole thing. Maybe with the councillor workshop, these will be sorted out. But I think we should have done this a year or two ago, when councillors should have been much more informed about what was going on. And finally, when the detailed proposal is developed, like whenever it's ready to go, is there any mechanism planned for community input? And at this moment, I don't think that's the case. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Councillor Garner.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if no one else would like to speak, I'd be happy to close the debate.
Okay.
Why hasn't anything happened? It's often a statement that we hear as councillors, but behind the scenes, the reliable yet often worn out cogs of local government, aka our staff, have been hard at work. And sometimes the hard work includes waiting for some other department in state government to tick off on something. So before we say, why haven't we had a workshop about it, the department, the minister, did not sign off on our master plan for Victoria Park until January of this year. So please don't push back too much on our staff when the waiting game has been part of the hardest thing. And Chris will attest, I think I've contacted him every month religiously since 2016 as to how things progressing with the heated pool project. Yes, this project could have cost us $4 million a long time ago, and it probably could have been swung under our own leadership team of the pool by then. However, the costs are so much more now, not only to build. We're probably looking at, if those figures were like 11 million then, we'd be looking at over 16 million now. But at that time, from memory, the deficit of going with the option, the preferred option, was 400K each year to add the heated pool project and the hydrotherapy into that. So looking at those figures, I think the option of a lease is the smart way to deliver this project, particularly with the $50 million project of the Craiggo Mill precinct. That project has been almost 3 decades in the making in terms of lining up the land, acquiring the land, looking at the possibilities, looking at feasibility studies, crunching the financials of that. Finally, in this term of government, we've been able to get that project forward. Going to an option of leasing where we don't have to be the expert in building a heated pool. We don't have to be the expert in running it. A company that has potentially, 20 of these facilities, potentially up and down the coast, might see this and go, that's a great community, we want to be a part of that, and we can deliver that because we have got an accounts manager who manages 20 of those, and because we already have a training program for our lifeguards, and we can quickly recruit and train the kind of people that we need. This is the way to deliver this project. I would love to see this in council's council's portfolio, but I don't think that's possible with the kind of figures that we're looking at and the kind of other projects council has to deliver. And while ever there's a rate peg, we can't go out to the community and say, this is a special project, let's make this happen. Particularly when we have figures like 400K, and that was, 2016 figures of what it would cost in deficit every year to deliver that kind of project.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. I'll put the motion then. All those in favour? Those against? Councillor Cameron? Against. Declare the motion carried. Thank you, councillors. 6.4, the investment report. There is a recommendation. Councillor Cameron.
No.
Councillor Reid.
I'll move the recommendation.
Have a second. Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Cameron.
This is part one of what is usually a two-part report of investments and borrowings. So the question is, acting, I was going to say General Manager.
CEO.
When will the borrowing report be presented to council?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'd have to liaise with the Director of Corporate and Community, as you're aware of our current staffing situation, but I'm hoping it will be at the next council meeting.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. 6.5, Agency Information Guide. Councillor Turner, Councillor Abbey, any questions? Councillor Abbey?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, to the acting CEO. A comment and a question. Firstly, I think it's an outstanding publication at 15 pages. There's a lot of really useful and orientating information in there, so well done to the teams that worked on that. In reading the June councillor briefing reports, there's a reference there that they are, and it's been worked upon, they are developing a new residence information pack. I'm just wondering if this guide, which I think is a wonderful guide, would be considered to be included in that pack.
Through you, Mr Mayor, can I take that question on notice, Councillor Abbey, and I'll provide you with some information?
But I think it would be a wonderful addition.
Yep, certainly, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Abbey. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. I've got a question, but again, a comment first of all. It is great to see that the agency information guide has been updated as it's important for transparency and accountability of Yass Valley Council. However, I am disappointed that both the register of contracts, which are over $150,000 with private organisations, plus the council disclosure log, have yet to be updated since 2018, despite being mandatory and well-implied responsibility for these to be up to date. So they haven't been updated since 2018, which is part of the governance issue. The second one that I mentioned, the council disclosure log, records is important because it tells us what information is being requested from the Yass Valley Council, what's being given and what is being not given. So it's really a major transparency issue. So the question is, what is the timeline for completion of the updates on each of these particular parts?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'll take the question on notice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron, and I'll respond.
Okay, any further questions? All the motion, all those in favour? Against, declare the motion carried. Beck Creek Bridge. Session. Questions and comments? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. Boat and Winery Trail, item 6.7.
Just like to move that item and seek a seconder.
Councillor Butler, Councillor Boffin.
Thank you. I'd just like to suggest an amended recommendation on item 6.7 that highlights Scrubby Lane to the Barton Highway section of stage 2 as a priority. So I did send Sheree some information. Yeah, so in point 2 of the recommendation, I just seek to change the wording so that it states the connection of stage 1 of the Murrumbean Winery Trail from Scrubby Lane to the Barton Highway be undertaken as the first priority with the remaining stage 2 works and not be contingent on the final design of the Barton Highway duplication.
Okay, we have a second. Oh, okay, yes.
Oh, I did that before that.
Yeah, I'll second. So we've got an amended.
Through Mr Mayor, this is the motion, so there's no amendment. She's put a motion which is different.
So that'll be good. Right. It's made second by Councillor Reid. Councillor Reid.
Through you, Mr Mayor, Mayor, I have a few questions on this matter. So I'd just like to seek permission to enter into a brief discussion with the Director of Nathan, if you would allow it.
Yes. Happy.
Thank you. Nathan, it's been advised that stage 2 will cost approximately $3 million to complete, with approximately $250,000 needed to go towards a detailed survey and design works. And the Scrubby Lane to Barton Highway section will cost approximately $650,000. That's correct in sort of approximate figures.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, very approximate without the detailed survey and design. It's done on estimates, yeah.
Sure. And I just wanted to confirm that there is no money allowance in the 23-24 budget for this project, and there is no residual money left from stage 1 to put towards stage 2.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that is correct.
Would it be likely that council would be successful in obtaining a grant for the $250,000 for the design? Or is it more likely that this allowance would come from the 24-25 budget? Because we won't be able to go after any grants for stage 2 until this process is complete. So I'd just like to be very clear from the outset on what kind of timelines we're looking at.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's a difficult one to answer. It'll be very dependent on what grants become available and when.
Okay. So in your experience though, do councils tend to get grants to just do a design?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, you can. You can get, depending on what the guidelines for the grant is and when they become available. If a grant does become available, it'll more than likely come back to council with a priority list of what priority council wanted to put that grant towards, what project. And if it does become available, that's the process it will follow.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, any further comments?
Oh, it's through Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Jones?
I'm happy to support the motion because I think there's a sensible response to the petition that we received asking for this connection. And I note that now that it's proposed as a circuit, it answers a lot of questions on safety for us. Noting that this project, if we were to stand alone and do it ourselves, is more than our gravel resheeting budget for the year. I just want to put that in context for residents of why we just can't go, okay, we're going to do it. And having just approved our budget this year to make that kind of variation is rather large. But I fully support looking for grants and seeing if we can get this connected for both our residents and also our visitors to the region, who will hopefully, once we have this kind of project done, have a more connected experience and be able to reach even more of our beautiful land.
Thank you. Councillor Potter.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to, in addition to the comments that have already been made, I just want to commend the staff on pulling this together so quickly, because this was the last council meeting that this was put through. So within a month, the work that's been done and the time that's been invested so that we could bring this back is fantastic. So yeah, thank you to all the team who've pulled together to get it this far, and I fully support looking for grants and doing what we can to make this happen, even though it's unfortunately missed out on the budget this year. But I'm hoping we can get some grants to get the ball rolling and get a bit of safety and things put in this section.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Do you have any comments that you wanted to make? All right, I'll put the motion then. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Six eight, compulsory land acquisition. I'd like to move that. Councillor Jones, Councillor Burgess. Put the motion, all those in favour? Declare the motion carried. Murray Boat Field Days, 6-9. Three specific discharge and water withdrawal. There is a recommendation.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm
Councillor Jones.
happy to move item 2 of that motion, but not item 1.
Item 2. We have a seconder?
Yes.
Councillor Abbey? Councillor Jones?
Just briefly, this is a sensible decision to get their turnaround time for water back where they need to be at the field days. It also means we don't have to provide a staff member there to get the water to the site quicker. And I think it's a great compromise in terms of ensuring that they lock how much water they extract from the Rose Street location. Have we got the Rose Street in there? Is that part of the?
So through you, Mr Mayor, we've just added at another location as agreed by council.
Okay, fabulous. In the reasons against reducing the fee for the sewage disposal, in our policy we have the ability to waive, and for a not-for-profit it has to meet 3 criteria. 1 being not-for-profit, 2 that is for the good of our community, which was a tick, these are no-brainers. But the 3rd one it also has to meet, which is that in charging this we would be causing hardship, and that's clearly been demonstrated by the applicant, and this is a very well-run event that has stood the test of time in my opinion.
Point of order. I may have missed, have we got a seconder for the motion?
Yes. Councillor Abbey.
So,
Good to see you. Good to be.
Thank you. Any speakers against the motion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? The motion carries. Okay, 7 notice of motion nil. Questions with notice nil. Minutes and recommendations of the council committees, 9-1, minutes of the Mango Wind Farm. Councillor Abbey, do we have a second? All right. Just relax for a moment or two, folks, while Councillor Bird removes himself. Okay, it's been moved. Councillor Abbey, seconded. Councillor Turner. Any discussion? Any comments? Councillor Abbey.
Just wanted to make a comment that the secretary of that committee, which I'm on, Julie, I think the last name. But anyway, she takes a really good record of the meeting, and it gives you a bit of flesh on the bare bones of what was discussed and the matters and decisions that were made in that meeting. So she is to be congratulated for taking what I consider to be quite accurate.
Okay, prepare to vote. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. Councillor Burgess. On 2 minutes of the Economic Development Advisory Committee. Again, there's a recommendation.
So moved.
Councillor Jones, seconder. Councillor Reid, thank you. Any comments? Any questions?
Just to note that while we'd all like things to change very quickly, amendments to things don't happen overnight. And secondly, without a change in our water situation, there is no pressing need for this potential review. However, when we do it, I think the idea of the smaller block sizes around public facilities is not new. However, also larger blocks that allow for strata title and community title are also a solution as well in these instances. So I'm sure that council, when it comes to do it, will look deeply into the issue of affordable housing.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Any other comments? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. 10 is a confidential matter. 10-1. Okay. Thank you very much for your attendance, folks. I'd like to move, we go into closed session.
Yes.
Councillor Jones, Councillor Abbey. Okay.
We're just waiting.